So let me guess. You know exactly how I feel, right? Because you remember waking up every day for 237 days expecting to miscarry, right? Or you remember going to doctor visits expecting them to say the baby didn't make it? Oh, wait. You remember that one time in September when your husband was hospitalized? When they said he had congestive heart failure and that his heart function was only 20%? Or maybe you remember staying at the hospital with them and thinking your kid, if you didn't miscarry, would grow up without a father and be born without a father? You remember trying to finagle around the truth when talking to his mom because she had lost her husband, your husband's father, to the same affliction? You remember they sent him home with that life vest? You remember hearing him say, everything looks great, and thinking they were lying? Do you remember having polyhydramnios? You remember getting those shots to stop your preterm labor and contractions? Or maybe you remember that time when your heart rate was in the 200s. Things were blurry. You felt like you were going to pass out. Then your water broke at the crib. Of course you remember that. You messed up your anchor blanket and your new mattress? Yeah. You were laughing to keep from crying because you figured it was finally time to face reality. Even though you had no idea what reality really was. You kept going back and forth in your head, dead, alive, dead, alive, alive, dead. Then you remember getting in the room and getting hooked up to all the machines. Then they said what you had been waiting to hear. What you knew had to be coming. They couldn't find a heartbeat. At that moment, you told God, it wouldn't be fair for you to have to push out a baby that wasn't going to make it. Remember starting to play the game on your phone? Trying not to go crazy? Yeah, you know exactly how I feel, bro. That's crazy. Then, when you thought your water broke again, but this time it was all blood, 3 nurses looked at you in shock as you bled out. So you had to tell your husband, hey, go get a doctor. Then a doctor that you've never seen at the doctor's office or anywhere else comes in and demands they rush you to the OR. They tried to put you under as quickly as possible, but because you had lost so much blood, they were running out of time. Your placenta disconnected from the uterus. They had to start cutting. So you felt the first part of the cutting for your emergency C-section. I'm sure you remember that. Remember not being able to see your kid for 3 days after birth? And then you finally get to another city where he's been transported to, and you find out your boy got hypoplastic left heart, imperforate anus, duodenal atresia, a shortened spleen, and he only got 1 kidney. Man. Then you can't even just pick him up when he cries so that you as a mom can comfort your kid. You have to get permission to hold him. And then you're only given a certain amount of time to hold him. And then when it's not time for you to hold him or your time is up, you can barely put your hand in the box that he's in so that he can hold on to your finger, which is all the comfort that you can provide at the time. You remember that, right? Then you come to visit on the day he turns 1 month old. You're excited. After going 237 days thinking that he wouldn't make it, he's finally here. He's been here for a whole month. And they almost lose him trying to transport him to another floor. Then the emergency procedures. Back to not being able to hold him. He's back in a box. You can barely touch him. because he has so much stuff everywhere. But you remember day 71? You remember day 71? The last day of rooming in, where you got to stay in the little hospital room and make sure you know how to take care of your baby once you actually go home. And then you finally get to take him home. You put him in the little car seat, strap him in the car, you and the hubby pull off in the whip. You excited. You ready. Finally, you could be a mom. At least that's what you thought. Remember feeling like you had just graduated nursing school at that point? And now you can take your kid home and you got all of it down packed. You remember getting into a routine and thinking, you know what? This ain't so bad. We could do this. Then got a little shaky. Now your son has a little cough and he's a little congested. His stomach is hurting, so he's fussy a little bit because he's not really tolerating the food that they want us to give him. So you take him to the hospital, get him checked out. You still feeling good, though. But, the hospital ain't never been your place to be. They check him out. Of course, the care isn't as adequate as you would like. But, it's a small visit, you feel me? And you just chilling, making sure everything is okay. They clear you. And then you get a phone call saying your mom had another stroke. Well, golly. I just got to the crib with my son. Couple weeks go by. He got to come back to the hospital. My mom in another state having strokes. You remember all that, right? You remember thinking, man, I ain't got time for all of this right here. But then you stop and you think about it and you like, you know what? You get all deep and wonderful for a second. You know what, God? I'm so grateful. Somebody was there and, they caught it or whatnot. I'm grateful, we was able to make it to the hospital, get Jamari all checked out. Then your mom's got better. Your son got better. You get back home and you like, all right, let's do this again. We got this. And then comes April 27th. You're cooking dinner. Your husband and a family friend are checking on your son who was asleep. Then you hear the family friend call you Kendra. And you think, she's making a joke until she comes out of the room and you see the terror in her face. She then mumbles, "He's not breathing." Within a split second, you don't really know if it's your husband that's not breathing or your son that's not breathing because you don't hear any noise. Everything stops. Your heart drops into your feet, but every second is imperative, so you don't really have time to freak out. You get into the room, your husband's sitting there, pressing down on your son's chest. And as much as you want to freak out and pass out and cry, you know that every second counts. You join your husband in performing CPR on your son. Your 3-month-old son is laying on your bed, not breathing. You tell your friend to call 911 as you start compressions, and your husband does the 2 breaths for every 30 compressions. The 911 operator tells your friend, "You reached the wrong station. You have to call the Homewood ambulance because apparently there's another number for 911 other than 911. They transfer her to the correct station. The paramedics come. All of their equipment, they still can't get him back. They're feeling around. They're giving him oxygen. And he's still laying there lifeless in your bed in front of you. They feel his wrist. And they say, we have a pulse. Let's get him into the ambulance. They get him into the ambulance. They head to the hospital. I yell at my friend to, lock up the house. My husband and I, we follow them to the hospital. They put you in a consultation room once you get to the hospital while they attempt to bring your son back. Doctors and nurses coming in and out of the room. They ask questions and quickly leave out. They come in, they ask questions and quickly leave out. Then another nurse comes in and looks as if she's doing everything to hold it together and asks if you two are the parents. Then she says, "Oh," and she quickly walks out. One door is locked from the inside, so you both run to the other side to get out of the room, come all the way around to stand in front of the doors where they're working on your son. At least 30 doctors and nurses are standing around. Someone is yelling demand for others to grab different things. You hear beeping, and then you hear silence, and then you hear beeping, and you hear commands. And then everything stops. They begin to roll the bed out. And you see a woman straddling your son, still performing CPR because he still hasn't come back. They take you to a waiting room upstairs, and you wait. And wait. And you wait. And you wait. At this point, 6 hours has passed. A doctor comes out and he says, we were able to get him on life support. But he was without oxygen to his brain and other organs for over 75 minutes. So we can't guarantee anything. You sit in awe because you don't know whether to be grateful or to wait for the other shoe to drop. Eventually, they let you in the room. And as you walk up to the room, you see a nurse standing at the door who's been crying because she's aware of your son's previous condition. And as a nurse, she understands the severity of the incident that just happened. You get to the door of the room, and there's blood splattered all over the floor. And this huge machine that's literally living for your son. Because you can't mentally pull yourself to stay in that room overnight, you go home. Of course, you're freaking out in the car because you know you're expected to go in the house and sleep in the bed where your son recently lay lifeless. You remember that, right? You know exactly how I feel, right? Remember how long each day was after that? Constantly thinking, is he gonna make it? Or is he gonna die? Dead, alive, dead, alive, alive, dead. Remember your husband started having trouble breathing again because he ran out of medicine. We're in a new city, no jobs, no insurance. Remember him going to the ER? Remember getting that call? Yeah, it's fluid again. But they gave him a prescription. He got his meds and things got better. Things started to look up. Remember your son getting better? Then your husband gets a job and he gets insurance and he's taking his medicine. Then they ever so subtly mention that a transplant may be your son's best chance. But only after they figure out how to get him to grow. They parking lot the transplant conversation and focus on feeding him. There's a little progress, and they're hopeful, but you already know it's a back and forth game. You get progress, and then it goes backwards. Progress, and then it goes backwards. But then you get to breathe a little. You even call yourself going to Atlanta for a mental health break. Then you got the call on your last day there. Your mentor died. And as much as you want to discredit the person that called you, you know they're credible. Who would make a call like that and lie about it? But still in disbelief, you call somebody else that should know. Like, they have to know. This can't be real. You call them and they don't answer. So a part of you is hopeful and thinking that they're not answering because, they could be at work. They may be essential. But there's this little part of you that accepts reality, and you push that aside because they're not really supposed to die, right? But they do. And she did. Then you're immediately submerged in memories. And for a split second, you feel like you're drowning in a mix of sorrow and gratefulness. You finally get the confirmation that you were looking for, and she's gone. You're finally forced to face reality when you see your brother post about the passing of the love of his life. And then you're torn. You're torn between being grateful that she's not suffering anymore and being completely pissed that you'll never be able to see, hear, or text her again. What in the absolute freak is going on? You try to keep it together, but you can't. Life has officially broke you. Sometimes you cry. Sometimes you're angry. Sometimes you have no idea. You go to see your son, and he smiles at you with everything he has as he fights for his life at 6 months old. You look at him and you cry. You hold him and you cry. At this point, you have no control over your emotions. Whenever your body wants to cry, it consumes you and forces its way out. Then you make a video explaining why people should stop saying, I know how you feel. I know exactly what you're going through. It's going to get better. You're strong. You can handle it. Or maybe if you just hadn't done this, you'd be okay. Hello, America. My name is Jennifer Marie Baker, and you have no idea how I feel.